But here he is, NBC Sports authentic 49er pre- and post-game host, Rod Brooks. Rod, how do we get to this point? Another 49er loss. What is going on?
Oh, well, I mean, where do we start, man? Here's where we start. We start at the end because a problem for the Niners all year long has been their inability to score in the fourth quarter and the fact that their defense gives up points in the fourth quarter. So it's like two ends of a rubber band, right? Mm-hmm. You can't score in the fourth quarter. Your defense is put under a lot of pressure, and it can't necessarily handle that pressure, so it gives up points in the fourth quarter. You keep pulling at those ends of the rubber band, it's eventually going to snap. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we could get into the reasons about fourth quarters, why they're getting to the point where, you know, it's a fight for them in the fourth quarter, what, you know, just kind of like a molecular level is going wrong for them in the fourth quarter. But you can't win if you're pulling those two ends of the rubber band. Combine that with penalties. Combine that with the fact that they are not running the ball the way that they should. And I am mystified as to why Jordan Mason now can't get any carries. It's no bueno at this point, man. And listen, if they don't beat Green Bay, they don't go to the playoffs. If they beat Green Bay, they still have a 54% chance of going to the playoffs. If they lose, it's a 14% chance. This is a must-win game, and we're not even at Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Drapes, you know, Magic used to call fourth quarter winning time.
Yes, sir.
For the Niners, it's losing time.
Okay.
They find a way to, hey, you set that one up. I did. He set that one up, right?
That was a mistake.
He set that one up. That wasn't me.
Slide that over to
But you're not lying, though. I mean, let's keep it a buck. It's the truth.
Right. That they finding ways to lose, right? So where does the blame lie? People talk about, well, the offense got to do more. Defense got to hold them. I maintain, and we talked about this on the show yesterday, I believe it was, the heat is turning up on Kyle Shanahan. I'm not saying that the water's boiling or anything like that. I'm not saying that it's, bubbles are flying, but it's a little hot. Like, should fingers be pointed at him a little bit more now, so?
But fingers point at him, fingers point at a bunch of people. But when you're the head coach, yeah, man, the majority of the fingers are going to be pointed at you. And I think some of the criticism is warranted and legitimate. Now, this whole, and I know you guys are not doing it or you're not referencing it right now, and I'm sure you haven't gone down this road, but this entire idea of fire Kyle Shanahan, he's not good, get rid of him, is just stupid. I know a lot of that's going down on Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it nowadays, and understanding fully that social media is not real life. But to me, that's unintelligent. If I'm going to try to be classy for once to say Kyle Shanahan should be fired. Now, that being said, Kyle Shanahan deserves some of the blame. Like I just referenced a little while ago, the Jordan Mason thing just absolutely mystifies me. I honestly don't understand it. I believe I mentioned this last week when it comes to Deebo Samuel and how he's used. He ain't the same dude anymore. He's not. I mean, he's only averaging about 2.8, 2.9 yards a carry. So because of that, why are we still giving him the ball in the backfield and on sweeps? That dog is not hunting. And they did that on Deebo Samuel got more run than Jordan Mason did. I don't understand that. I don't understand Brock Purdy having to not always, but far too many times worry about a free blitzer coming instead of them having the ability to slide the protection over. Yeah. Whether it's giving Brock Purdy a little bit more of that or, the offensive line not necessarily doing its job. So I think the criticism of Kyle Shanahan, of him being stubborn, of him not changing, of him having some ownership of the current state of the Niners, I completely and totally think that's warranted. But I also think it's warranted, again, to talk about certain players and certain situations. The offensive line, particularly center and right tackle, is killing them. It killed them in the run game against Seattle last week. You have other guys, Fred Warner, who we love for whatever reason, and I don't know, but over the last couple of weeks, Fred Warner has not necessarily, been his usual outstanding self. And obviously injury has a lot to do with it, but it's the NFL. People get injured all the time. So I just think that the cumulative effect of so many years of playing high-stakes football into January, into February, along with getting everybody's best shot, along with I do think the league having a better understanding as to how to defend that Shanahan family zone running scheme, the Niners red zone issues. We could keep going on down the list. All of these things have conspired to put the Niners, along with the Niners' own doing, to put them in the situation where they are right now, which is 5-5 and staring down the barrel of a must-win game.
Yeah, Rod, to your point about how ridiculous the Shanahan narrative has become, a station where I used to work in the Bay, and I get along with everybody there. They're all my friends. I love them. But they had a question today. Who would you rather have as your coach right now, Kyle Shanahan or Jim Harbaugh? I'm like, we're better than that. Come on. That's ridiculous.
Well, you know what kills me, and all respect to Jim Harbaugh, because clearly his resume speaks for itself. Where he goes, they have immediate success. But the romanticization
Gotcha.
of Jim Harbaugh's time with the Niners just baffles me, because it was good, and when it was great, it was great. But let's not sit here and talk about, like the Niners were slinging the ball all over the place offensively with Jim Harbaugh. It was pulling teeth.
Yeah.
Watching that Greg Roman offense, and Jim Harbaugh coach team, it was baffling to watch that offense try and do anything. And they couldn't. They had success. They went to the Super Bowl. It was all great. But romanticizing his time with the Niners and using that romanticization of his time to ding Kyle Shanahan, I just find that to be unintelligent.
Thank you.
All right.
Very diplomatic today.
All right,
He's pulling his punches a little bit, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Because I don't want to say what I want to say.
Right.
You're talking about it, and I dig those people too. I think that's silly, man. You can criticize Kyle Shanahan without, in essence, creating a narrative about Jim Harbaugh's time with the Niners to beat down Kyle Shanahan. You don't have to do that, in my estimation. But again, I do think the criticism of Shanahan or this team currently and going forward, it's something that has to be talked about, because just doing notes to get ready for the game on Sunday, the Niners are terrible in the red zone. They're 27th. You know who's right behind them? Green Bay. 28th. You look at the bottom of the order in red zone touchdown percentage. The majority of those teams, if not all of them, are all teams that run that zone read Shanahan family run system. So clearly, and we saw it in the Super Bowl last year, if you have the personnel, you man up on the outside, you overload blitzes on one side, and that's how you are able to make the Shanahan family run system, as I like to call it. That's how you make it clunky. That, especially when you get into that red area, when you get into that compressed zone. So now it's up to employ that scheme, but specifically Kyle Shanahan, it's up to him to adjust. What those adjustments are, I don't know. I ain't that smart, but clearly something needs to be done.
That's really interesting.
Yes.
The wide zone. Defensive coordinator catching on. They solved it.
They know how to penetrate that. All right, Rod, because I know, they're 5-5 now. You got Green Bay and then Buffalo. Give Niners fans reason for optimism, or is there any right now?
No, I think there's optimism, first and foremost, because we have a quarterback. We all know that this is a quarterback-driven league. And if you have a quarterback, you have a chance to win football games. So Brock Purdy, in my estimation, has been as good or at times better than he was last year. And I think about particularly, I think about the fact that his ability to run the ball has helped the Niners out when it comes to extending drives, getting first downs. Matter of fact, he's the leading rushing touchdown leader on the Niners with 4. Now, here's the problem. That ain't sustainable. All right. You're not going to get to the playoffs and do anything of note in the playoffs when your quarterback, if he's not Lamar Jackson, with your quarterback being your leading rushing touchdown getter, so to speak. But they have a quarterback, and they have Christian McCaffrey, who I'm sure you guys can see this too. He's not exactly where he needs to be and where he wants to be. And I think that has nothing to do with the Achilles tendon. I think that has everything to do with the fact that he's only played 2 meaningful football games, over the course of the last 9-10 months, however it is. So I think he's getting to that point. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a breakout game against Green Bay.
Mm.
But he's trending in that direction, but he's got to get some help from his offensive line, particularly his center and those interior center and left guard, particularly center and Jake Brindle. Another reason to be optimistic. George Kittle's the best tight end in football. George Kittle's going to play this weekend. And not only has George Kittle saved them in the red zone, but we saw this without George Kittle against Seattle. The run game is it's concrete in the washing machine without George Kittle. That's how important tight end. And the Niners were unable to replicate his ability to run block. I mean, they tried to go with an extra offensive lineman in the first couple of series against Seattle to try and get that George Kittle run blocking in there, and they simply couldn't do it. So you're getting George Kittle back, and he projects to be there for the rest of the season. The Bosa thing, if he's healthy, he's still Nick Bosa. Fred Warner, I know, as I mentioned, the last couple of weeks, he's kind of been below his usual excellent standard. I don't think that's going to last unless we're talking about something wrong with him physically. And again, I don't know if that's the case. The young defensive backs that the Niners have, and the other young players, whether we're talking Dominic Clooney on that offensive line at right guard or Garindo and Mason, if they get used, there's still a ton of talent on this team. Jawan Jennings emerging as, their number one receiver. There's still too much talent on this team for them to completely and totally go off the cliff. But they got to clean some things up, like penalties, like figuring out the lack of fourth quarter scoring and giving up the defense 10 points in the fourth quarter in all of those games. So it's there, but you can see how they're teetering on the brink right now, which is how you get to the point where you're 5-5 and you're staring down the barrel of a must-win game at Green Bay before Thanksgiving.
Yes, Rod, we'll be watching pregame live, postgame live. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks. We appreciate it.
All right, fellas, always fun. Be good.
All right, Rod.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah.
All right.
A little fired up today.
Yeah, he's on one today. He's been holding this in ever since that loss, He's fired up at people.
Now, do you have your 49er excuse list handy? Because I got a good one for you.
I got it right here.
I got a really good one for you.
And you want me to write this one down?
Legit. You're going to want to write it down. It is legit, and it's next with the drive, guys.